industries except a short list. Freedom was given to decide the size of the business activities. There was no much restrictions on the expansion and contraction. Freedom was given in fixing the price of the goods and services. There was removal of restrictions on the movement of goods and services, reduction in the tax rates and lifting of unnecessary controls over the economy, simplifying the export and import procedures and making it easier to attract foreign capital and technology to India. So there was liberalization. Okay, loosening of the restrictions, no much of restrictions, no much of control, so that the business enterprises could carry on their work smoothly, resulting in smooth functioning of business enterprises. Okay. Next is privatization. What it refers to? Privatization refers to reducing the role of public sector by involving private sector in most of the activities of the business enterprises. So the role of the public sector was reduced. Importance was given to private sector. Initially at the time of independence it was reduced role of private sector. Now again, then it was nationalization. You heard of nationalization of bank. From the private it was nationalized, given to public sector. Later on, now after the new industrial policy, it is again privatization. Okay, give the private sector, give the private entrepreneurs more importance. Role of public sector reduced, and private sector was given more importance and most activities were given. Why again? It was given in order to achieve. Government redefined the role of public sector in new industrial policy. So government redefined the role of public sector in the new industrial policy of 1991. Only few industries of strategic importance were left in the hands of public sector, others were all privatized. Adopted the policy of planned disinvestment of public sector. Disinvestment, already spoke. What is it? It adopted the policy of planned disinvestment of the public sector and referred the loss-making and sick enterprises to Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. The industries which were incurring huge loss, sick industries which were not able to earn profits in the long run, they were referred to Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. Important abbreviation, Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. Okay. Many of the loss-making industries and the sick industries were referred to this board so that they could help these industries to earn profit or some way transfer the assets, and they could put into good projects where they could earn profits, or the sick industries were be able to overcome and they could move on as a good profit earning organizations. So they adopted the policy of planned disinvestment of the public sector and decided to refer the loss making and sick enterprises to the Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. Here the term disinvestment used is transfer in the public sector enterprises to the private sector. What you are transferring? The stake. So disinvestment here is transfer in the public sector enterprises to the private sector. The stake, the assets, what the government sold, that disinvestment, already explained it there. So when there is sale of the stake, it diluted the stake of the government in public enterprises. The government didn't have much ownership. It diluted the government ownership in public sector enterprises. So this dilution of government ownership beyond 51% resulted in the transfer of ownership and management. So when there was dilution in the ownership, automatically there was transfer of ownership and management from public sector to private sector. So that is also a meaning of transfer of, meaning of privatization, transfer of ownership and management from public sector to private sector. So when the government, there was dilution of the government ownership beyond 51%, automatically there was transfer of ownership and management of the enterprise to private sector. So that is called again as privatization. So when the government lost hold, there was no much stake of the government in public sector, automatically there was transfer of ownership and management to the private sector enterprises. So that is called as privatization. Next you come to globalization. So globalization is the integration of various economies of the world, various economies of the world towards leading towards the emergence of cohesive global economy. It means the integration of various economies of the world. All the countries around the world came together, which led to emergence of cohesive global economy. Cohesive global economy, working together, coming together, each other, different countries coming together in order to have a global economy. So globalization brought about integration of the various economies of the world, leading towards the emergence of cohesive global economy. Our country was thrown open for global market, global economy we say, for foreign products and services. That is because of globalization. It means integrating the economy of the country with the world economy. So integration with the world economy. This brought about free flow of goods and services, capital, technology, labor across the national boundaries. So there was no much of restrictions. Globalization brought about, it implies free flow of capital, goods, services, technology and labor across the national boundaries. So in order to achieve this, a policy of relating to the imports in terms of volume terms, Importing of the goods was also allowed, no much of restrictions. Export promotion was there without much of restrictions. To achieve these objectives, the government adopted various measures. So in order to have a global economy, the government adopted various measures. The measures was reduction in custom duties. If you have to import or export, reduce the duties, reduction in custom duties, removal of some restrictions on exports and imports, remove the restrictions on exports and imports, reduction in customs duty, facilitating foreign investment and encourage foreign technology. So in order to achieve the objectives of globalization, the government adopted these measures. Measures like reducing the duties, custom duties, import maybe export, and also some restrictions on the import and export. That is, restrictions, qualitative restrictions were reduced or removed, restrictions liberalized, and allowing the facilitating the foreign investment and encouragement of foreign technology. So these were the measures adopted by the government in order to have a globalization, in order to achieve the objectives of globalization. So it involved globalization brought about increased level of interaction, with other countries. They were able to interact with the other countries beyond their physical geographical boundaries. They were no longer a barrier for the countries to have interaction, to have business, export and import, and it brought interdependence among various nations. So each country was dependent on the other. They had increased interactions. Each country, because of this, there was interdependence. It brought about some, because of this trade, international trade which developed, it brought about cordial relations. Also, it made possible for rapid investment in technology. Technology was encouraged, foreign investment was encouraged. This brought about rapid advancement in technology and liberal trade policies by government. So liberalizations on restriction, removal of unnecessary controls and restrictions gave way, promoted, developed exports and free flow of the technology, capital, labor from other countries, increased interaction between the other country, interdependence. So this was able, the main objective of globalization, the government was able to achieve, and the government of India moved the country to this globalization pattern. Because of the new industrial policy of 1991, government of India was able, or it moved the country to this globalization pattern. So globalization means the integration of the various economies of the world, leading towards the emergence of cohesive global economy. What does it mean? Cohesive global economy means coming together with each other. It means integrating the economy of a country with the world economy. Because of this, it was able to achieve the objectives, that is reduction in customs duty. Measures were adopted to achieve the objectives by reducing the custom duty, by removing the restrictions on imports and exports, facilitating foreign investment, and also encouraging foreign technology. So this involved increased level of interaction and interdependence among various nations of the global economy, and through this policy, the government of India moved the country to globalization pattern. Okay. So these three were the important concept of new industrial policy of July 1991. That is liberalization. What does liberalization say? It is the process of eliminating unnecessary controls and restrictions. It signaled the end to license, permit, quota, Raj. You have the features there. Then privatization, it refers to reducing the role of public sector by involving private sector in most of the activities, or just it says transfer of the ownership and management from the public sector to the hands of the private sector. Then globalization, integration of various economies of the world leading towards the emergence of cohesive global economy, or simply it means integrating the economy of the country with the world economy. So those are the three aspects of the new industrial policy. So next concept is demonetization. All are aware of that. This was in the year 2016, November 8, 2016, where the government of India through the Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi made an announcement on November 8, 2016 with a profound implication for the Indian economy. What was it? It was announced that the two largest denominations notes, rupees 500 and rupees 1000, were demonetized with immediate effect. That means they were no longer a legal tender currency. They will not be accepted as a legal tender currency. With immediate effect, they were ceased to be the legal tender except for a few specified purpose up to certain period. So paying for utility bills up to certain period, it was extended up to December, then it was extended up to March 31st, 2017. You might have seen during this period, the economy, the people were totally disturbed, not knowing what to do, unaware of the fact why it happened, what was it, what about the money, what we have in hand, how are we to use, what is the other in exchange for this. Total unaware the public were at that particular point of time. This demonetization led to 86% of the money in circulation invalid. So all who possessed unaccounted money, what we call as black money, it was invalid. Some people had to deposit it immediately to the bank. 500 and 1000 note, immediate there was deposits, the deposit increased, the taxpayers who were evading, who had not paid, they had to pay tax because their amount was deposited in the bank, it was accounted for and they had to pay the income tax. That was the main aim of demonetization, to stop tax evasion. And the people of India had to deposit the invalid currency in the banks, which came along with the restrictions placed on cash withdrawals. You had withdrawals, cash withdrawals, there was restrictions, you could not withdraw more per day. Deposits also, you could not deposit more. Restrictions were placed on the convertibility of the domestic money and bank deposits. You could not convert that. On that particular day, you might have heard people rushed, all the jewelry, gold shops were full. They wanted to buy gold, they wanted to convert their money, they wanted to convert this 500 and 1000. For some time, maybe later in the night up to early morning, shops were open, gold shop. They went to buy, instead of depositing this currency and paying the tax there, they went to invest in gold. So all this was the situation then in the year 2016 during the month of November, December. The main aim, what is demonetization? Come to the meaning. It refers to an economic policy. It took place when? Announcement November 8, 2016. It was a new economic policy where a certain currency ceased to be recognized or used as a form of legal tender. So it was rupees 500 and rupees 1000 ceased to be a legal tender currency with immediate effect. Only for specified purpose you could use it for some time, that is for paying the utility bills. So it is a currency loses its legal tender status. Demonetization is a situation where a existing currency loses its legal tender status as a new one comes into circulation. So rupees 500 and 1000 lost their status as legal tender currency, and rupees 2000 was in circulation. We have to stand in long queue in the ATMs to receive this 2000 rupees. So in order to withdraw the amount, withdraw 2000, only 2000 was there. 2000 was in circulation, which we could use as a legal tender currency. Long queues you might have seen in ATMs for withdrawing of your money in the form of rupees 2000 legal tender currency. So demonetization refers to an economic policy where a certain currency ceases to be recognized or used as a form of legal tender. It was rupees 500 and 1000. It is also a state where a currency loses its legal tender status as a new one comes into circulation, that is rupees 2000. What is the main aim here? What is the main aim? The main aim of demonetization was to curb corruption. The main aim was to curb corruption, paying, bribing, corruption, red tapeism taking place in the economy. To stop that, curb corruption means to stop or prevent corruption. To reduce or counterfeit the use of high denomination notes for illegal activities. Counterfeiting, there were the printing of duplicate notes of 500 and 1000 which was taking place frequently, regularly, not able to differentiate. So those were used for illegal activities, high denominations. Okay, that is activities through illegal activities carried on by the use of these high denomination notes. To stop that or to reduce or prevent the use of high denominations notes for illegal activities, for carrying on illegal activities. Also, to stop accumulation of black money, to counterfeit the accumulation of black money. What is black money? The money which is unaccounted for, that generated, the black money which is generated by the income that has not been declared to the tax authorities. Any source, it may be any source of income, but it has not been declared to the tax authorities. That is called as black money. So with these three aim, to prevent or curb corruption, counterfeiting the use of high denomination notes for illegal activities, to counterfeit or stop accumulation of black money, demonetization was announced by the Government of India by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi on November 8, 2016. Now what are the features of demonetization? Demonetization is viewed as tax administration measure. It is seen as, or demonetization is viewed as a tax administration measure, that is cash holdings arising from declared income was readily deposited. All those who had denominations of 500 and 1000, those were the taxpayers, they deposited the money into the bank. Those was unaccounted money. You could see the monies, if you have seen the news at that particular time, packed in sacks and floating in the ponds or the water or the garbage or the drainage. Instead of depositing in the bank and paying the tax, if they deposit in the bank, they were penalized. they were punished for not paying the tax, they had to pay. So instead they threw that. You could see the 500 and 1000 notes in sacks which were around thrown or which were torn off, tearing the money and just putting it as a waste, dumping it as a waste. Okay. So it viewed as a tax administration measure. Cash holding arising from declared income was readily deposited in bank and exchanged for the new notes. But those with black money had to declare unaccounted wealth and pay tax. Some of them, of course, they deposited the black money into the bank, and as a penalty, as a punishment, they had to pay tax for the unaccounted wealth. So you could see the amount of money kept in their houses, in the roofs, under the bed. If you have watched the news at that time, you could see the unaccounted money which they had to deposit. Some had deposited and they were penalized. They had to, for keeping this money unaccounted, they had to pay the tax. Demonetization is also interpreted as a government indicating the tax evasion. Okay, so it was interpreted as a shift on the part of the government indicating that tax evasion will no longer be accepted or tolerated. So when demonetization took place, people deposited some unaccounted money also they deposited. So they had to pay the tax. So this brought about that the government indicated that tax evasion will no longer be tolerated or accepted. If you are not paid the tax, you have to pay it now as a penalty, as a punishment. Or if they didn't want to pay that, they threw the denominations here and there and torn off the currencies also. So demonetization is also interpreted as a shift on the part of the government indicating that tax evasion will no longer be tolerated or accepted. Demonetization also led to tax administration channelizing savings into formal financing system. So it led to tax administration. It led to tax administration channelizing savings into formal financing system. That is, much of the cash deposited in banking is bound to be withdrawn, but some of them were bound to deposit in the new deposit schemes offered by the bank. Some money were withdrawn, but some were deposited in the new deposit schemes which were provided by the banks, and some were to provide as a base loan at low interest rates. So whatever money is deposited, some amount has been withdrawn, some were deposited, and some were to provide some base loans at low interest rates. One more feature, important feature, one more unique feature is it resulted in creating of a less cash or cash light economy. It did not carry much of cash, less cash transaction, cash light economy, that is channelizing more savings through formal financial system and improving tax compliance also. You had to pay tax, channelize the savings into new formal financial system. There, when it is cash light economy, many opposed this. There were opposition arguments against this because this as a digital transaction require cash light economies. You are not carrying cash, you are not carrying hard cash. Everything is payment is through cell, digital transactions. Many of them oppose this. They were against because they need to have a cell phone, they need to have a proper the internet connection. The customers need to have cell phone, and the merchants, they need to have this POS machine, point of sale machine, when the amount was paid through card. then they need to have to swipe these POS machines for merchants, which would work only through internet connectivity. So many were against this. Those who didn't have cell phone, they cannot carry on digital transaction. Digitization was not possible. They had to pay at the point of sale through card, through their cell payment. You have now Paytm, Google Pay, whatever digital transactions, cashless transaction takes place. The merchants also opposed because they need to have these POS machines. Later on, this advantage, then also they need to have the internet connectivity. All these were some of the hurdles, difficulties then, but these advantages were counterbalanced by understanding that it helped the people into formal economy, thereby increasing financial saving and reducing the tax evasion. There were disadvantages. Every aspect, any new economic policy has one or two disadvantages, but later on it will be counterbalanced. So same way, this was counterbalanced by understanding that it helped people into formal economy, thereby increasing savings and reducing the tax evasion. So demonetization, important, meaning it refers to economic policy where certain currency ceases to be recognized or used as a formal legal tender money, or a currency loses its legal tender status when a new one comes into circulation. Main aim was to curb corruption, counterfeit the use of high denomination notes for legal activities, to stop accumulation of black money. Features: demonetization was viewed as a tax administration measure. Tax evasion will no longer be tolerated or accepted. It was government indicating that, interpreted a shift there, indicating tax evasion will no longer be tolerated or accepted. Demonetization as a tax administration measure channelized the savings into formal financing system. When they deposited money, they deposited in some new deposit schemes. Some were used as, some cash were bound to withdraw, some deposited in new deposit scheme, and some amount was provided as a base loan with the low interest rates. And also a unique feature, this brought about, it created less cash economy or cash light economy. Digital transaction took place everywhere. People owned a cell phone, merchants had POS, they had internet connectivity. Earlier it was against that disadvantage, later on counterbalanced by people understanding the need, the people understood, and it helped the people to have a formal economy, increasing the savings, financial savings, and reducing the tax evasion. Okay. That is regarding demonetization. One more, you have last concept in this chapter, that is impact of the changes on business and industry. Impact of the changes, government policy changes. One more important concept you may get as a 4 marks. Impact of government policy changes on business and industry. Business and industry. These are the points similar where you have already studied in the importance of business environment. Some points are repeated. So impact of government policy changes on business and industry, or you can also take it as challenges due to government policy changes. Challenges. Okay. What are the challenges? Challenges due to the government policy changes. So the policy of liberalization, privatization and globalization had brought about significant impact on the working of the enterprises. So all this LPG had brought about significant changes in the working of business enterprises. The Indian corporate sector had to face several challenges due to the government policy changes, due to the new industrial policy after July 1991. So these challenges may be, what were the challenges, or what is the impact? One is increased competition, increased or increasing competition. Okay, already had this in coping in rapid technology. These are some of the points I have come across. More demanding customers. This also I have come across, more demanding customers. Rapidly changing technology. Rapidly changing technological environment. Technological environment. Necessity for change. Necessity for change. Need for developing human resources. Need for developing human resources. Market orientation. Market orientation. Loss of budgetary support to the public sector. To the public sector. So these were the challenges which was faced by the Indian industry, business and industry. So the Indian corporate sector had to face several challenges due to the new government policy changes, that is because of liberalization, privatization and globalization. Increasing competition. As a result of changes in the rules of industrial licensing, controls and restrictions were liberalized. There were foreign entry, easily foreign enterprises could enter into our country. So there was tough competitions from the foreign firms. So industrial changes in the licensing of industrial enterprises and the entry of foreign firms, competition for Indian firms increased, especially in the service industry, in the telecommunication, airlines, banking, insurance sector. They suffered severe competition because the foreign firms entered into the market due to the reduction of the rules, regulation or the restrictions. So earlier, which were in the public sector, these were in the public sector, now they were given, they had to face competition from the foreign firms, mainly in the service sector, telecommunication, you see in the banking, in the insurance sector, Indian firm, business and industry had to face competition with the foreign firms because of the entry of foreign firms, tough competition. Next, more demanding customers. We already learned this in the rapid coping of technology changes, their importance. Customers today have become more demanding because they are well informed. They have wide choice of products from different companies. So everything they want customized as per their taste and preferences. Not the business enterprise what it has. They want as per their taste and preferences. Changes in fashion industry. So more demanding customers, they became more demanding because they are well informed about the product. More competition in the market. Okay, severe competition in the market, and because of wider choice they have. So they are purchasing, they clever, they were purchasing, they looked into the quality of the product. Due to competition, they were trying to improve the quality of the product. So choice in purchasing better quality of the goods and services. They went in for quality of the product, customized products, we say customized service. So the customers became more demanding. So business enterprises had to adjust according to the customers' needs and preferences. Next, rapidly changing technological environment. Already we studied. Increased competition from force the business enterprises to adopt new ways or new techniques or new methods to survive in the market for a long time. So they have to survive and grow. They have to adopt new method, new techniques. As I have told, to advertise the product, they had to use these CD-ROMs, computerized information kiosks. They had to now the technology using of robotics in some manufacturing assembly line industries, all this. So you come up with the new technology, you had to cope up with the technology. The industry, business industry has to adjust itself to the technological changes taking place. So it was possible to improve the machines, products, services, and this rapidly changing technology environment created tough challenges before small firms. Huge firms, large firms, they were able to cope. They are able to borrow the technology or purchase the technology, adjust according to the technological changes in the environment. But this actually posed a threat to the small firms where they were not able to cope with the technological changes. So it was a real challenge to the smaller firms. Necessity for change. Next one. In a regulated environment of pre-1991 era, the firms could relatively have stable policies and practices before 1991. No much changes in the economic policies. It was stable for long. So they didn't have anything much challenges to face. But after 1991, the market forces became turbulent. Turbulent market forces. Unexpected fall and rise in the market. Some or the other reason, less brand loyalty as a result, which the enterprises had to continuously modify their operations. So in order to have brand loyalty, in order to cope up with the unexpected fall and rise in the market, maybe the investment or maybe the product services, they had to modify themselves. They have to find some innovative methods so that they will be having the regular customers. They will be having this brand loyalty towards them. Okay. So sudden changes, sometimes market turbulence means sudden unexpected changes brought about challenges in front of these business enterprises where they need to modify their operations using new techniques and new ways. Next, need for developing human resources. Indian enterprises has suffered for long with the inadequate trained personals. When technology, you have new technology, then you need to train yourself also. You have to enhance your skills, you have to enhance your abilities. So trained personnel was lacking where you could not adjust with the changing technology. Now the technology of online classes, adjusting to that. Okay, we have to adjust, you have to adjust because it is because call of the day which is changing. So the enterprises lacked inadequate trained personnel. The new market conditions required people with high competency. So the business enterprises had to send the employees into the seminars, to the workshop, so they could enhance their skills and abilities. Market orientation. Prior to 1991, the market was product orientation. That is, first the product came to the market, then it was sale. Now it is market operating, customer orientation. First you study the market. First you have a field study. Okay, you have to go to the field, know the taste, likes of the prospective customers, potential existing customers, and then you produce the product. So that is market orientation. Study, analyze the market and produce the product. Finally, loss of budgetary support to public sector. The government didn't have much fund for the public sector. In order to grow and survive, they had to realize that they should be more efficient and generate their own resources to carry on their business activities. They were not getting much support from the government. So these were the impact or the challenges faced by the industry, business and industry. Okay. So we come to the end of this chapter, business environment.